Hello, Jay.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm super excited to talk to you.
I'm so stoked to talk to you as well. We worked together 2 years ago, but we haven't really spoken much since then. So
I
I'm stoked to
know.
catch up.
I know. Can you hear me okay? Is it loud enough for you?
Oh, it's perfect.
Okay, good. I can hear you well too. Sometimes it's a little iffy.
Oh no, it's perfect in here.
Yeah, when did we start talking? We've been friends for a long time now, huh?
Yeah, I would say probably 2017.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a lot has happened since then.
I know. To be quite honest with you, I have like a horrible memory and I forget things that I did 2 weeks ago, let alone 5 years ago or whatever. So I'm always like trying to piece together information into my head. Like, when did I meet this person? Was it MySpace? Was it, you know, Philadelphia in 1997? Like, I don't know.
I could totally understand that. I have pretty bad short term and I've been told long term memory as well. So it's just kind of
Yeah.
one of those things. Unless I can count the rings on it, I'm not quite sure how old anything has been.
I
Uh,
know.
Relationships, records. I don't know. I'm just in the moment.
I'm the same way. Like, it's actually depressing to me, and like I envy people who have that kind of recall. Like Mike can tell you every song he's ever recorded, the date that he recorded it, how he recorded it, who was in the room. And I'm like, if somebody said, I'll give you $1 million to name the track listing on your last album, I'd be screwed. I just
Sometimes
don't
it's
have
just like
that.
that.
Yeah, I just don't have that. But I can remember faces, so
Hey, as long as you can remember something.
yeah, I don't know. I don't forget my child's birthday. I think that's the
That's the most important thing.
the main. Yeah. So I was saying I like your art back there.
Well, thanks so much. I got this. This is a painting by Jules Muck
Okay.
that I got at a thrift store.
That's so cool.
Uh, yeah, it's this massive thing. And then this is the cover of Answer Me One, blown up really big.
That's
And then this is a case
cool.
for my clear guitar.
Right on.
It This is like my like a man cave office thing. A lot
That's
of wrestling stuff. Signed Dennis Rodman jerseys.
oh cool.
Yeah, there's a signed Mike Tyson speed bag over there.
Oh
Uh,
cool. Mike would.
Boom Boom Baby boxing glove. It's like Testosterone City with all
Yeah.
the like sports memorabilia, and there's like a beer mirror.
Mike
It's just
would literally kill for that space. None of us have any private space at all. Our house is real small. So literally, like today, he's working on a song for our new album, and this is our recording studio. Once again, I'm doing air quotes. I need to stop that. But the end of our bed, he sets up the computer, and that's our computer. That's our system. We have a microphone right here that we just set beside the end of the bed. He gets his guitar out, puts it back under the bed when he's done. I mean, it's so Spartan. It's and we're
it
still using
works.
acid to record with.
Oh yeah,
Funny.
I haven't used acid in a long time.
It
But
works.
yeah, I'm sitting here trying to be like, oh, it's fine. Then you were like acid pro. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But like I lived in Los Angeles for a really long time, about 8 years, and I totally know what you're talking about with the space thing.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason I live in the hood, but I have 4 bedrooms.
Yeah. That's
Or 3 bedrooms rather. But like I have an office, a room for my cats, a bedroom, living room, patio, basement, sort of parking, like reasonable rent. I'm okay. People get shot in my front steps sometimes.
yikes.
But that's the thing. Like I don't really like have kids, so it's not like I need to worry about any, like, it's just me and then my girlfriend. And
Right.
we're both kind of used to the fact, like, all right, cool. Don't talk to the people who are trying to sell you heroin.
Right.
Like ultimately, if they see you around here enough, they realize you live around here and won't fuck with you.
Yeah. You're
You're
not.
not just visiting.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have that.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it's the trade-off, though. Like, you want to live in a place that's, like, safe. Either you know, be prepared to pay for that safety tax.
right. Out to the country where, you know, there's not much going on. If you're not into, you know, if you're not into like that would work for me because we're not into like doing anything. We don't leave the house anyway, so we could live in the middle of nowhere and it would be fine. But you know, we are where we are now. So we were talking about weather earlier, and you know, like ultimately, is this the best place for Lycia to be? Considering we both hate the sun and the heat, probably not. But our house is like almost paid off, and we're old, so starting over someplace else probably not a good idea at this point.
I feel that. I mean, like, there's also like with what I'm experiencing currently. Like, I used to, when I was younger, really enjoy the cold. As I've gotten older, not so much. Like, since I was like, oh, you know, this salting my driveway and fucking, you know, digging my car out. That shit sucks. Not being able to go out and do anything. Like, before, I was like, oh, yeah, I'll put on a bunch of layers. Now, fuck those layers to do anything. You know, like, fuck not being able to get groceries because snow doesn't happen gradually. Just monsoon, nothing. Monsoon, nothing. So it's like, okay, cool. You know, what's the alternative? Live in, you know, Florida where it rains all the fucking time and you got hurricanes. And, you know, I lived through that. I didn't understand. Google thinks I'm asking it a question.
That was awesome.
Even Google's like, I don't understand a place that doesn't have extreme weather shitty.
That's awesome.
Like lesser of two evils. I mean, you know, that's it is what it is. I liked England when I was there. But with like really expensive gas.
I feel like that would probably someplace like that would work well for us, I think. Never too hot, never too cold. Socialized medicine.
Yeah, that'll definitely do it. But they, you know, like they've got so many of their own problems, and they're turning into like every time I went there, they were turning a little bit more and more into the shitty parts of America.
Yeah, that's depressing.
Yeah, I mean, I started going over there in the mid 2010s, and it was like, oh, this is awesome. No high fructose corn syrup in anything, you know, like no steroids in your food. The food just tastes better. I'm like, wow, restrictions on food. The food just fucking tastes so much better. And everybody in England was like, we're not really known for having like really great food.
Right. It's kind of
not loaded with shit.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was, you know, I love the weather. But, yeah, the politics there apparently have been leaning more and more towards, like, Trumpy bullshit, and that's not good. So, you know, all I can say is that I'm happy that I just found a place with cheap rent.
Nice, yeah.
I can have a stupid man cave with a Dennis Rodman, like space for a signed Dennis Rodman jersey.
Yeah, that's nice.
Like, I'll take whatever I can get if I need to deal with like shoveling out snow, whatever. I live close enough to Amish country where I can still get really good like beef jerky and cheese and shit like that. So that's the trade-off. Cool. You know, like crazy snow, live near Amish and get like 10 Dutch foods.
Yeah, I lived near that in Ohio. where I grew up, we were close to Amish folk. Yeah, we saw them, they were just around all the time at the store, wherever, because they lived there. So that was interesting. And we used to sometimes go to like Amish restaurants or whatever. And you're right, their food is way better because it's all like fully homemade. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
like garbage. It was funny one time, gosh, this was so long ago. Mike and I went to my parents' house to visit, like it was the weekend or whatever. And they're like, oh, let's go for a drive. And for whatever reason, I didn't find this peculiar, which in retrospect, it was peculiar. But we're driving through Amish country. And they're like, oh, let's stop at this restaurant. We stopped at this restaurant. And like at the end of dinner, these Amish ladies come out with a chocolate cake and they sang me happy birthday. It was the weirdest, because I guess it was around my birthday, but how weird, right? Like these little Amish ladies sang me happy birthday. It was so weird and random.
That was a great pie, though. I bet you that was an amazing pie.
Yeah.
That's
Mike just said from the other room, and they did it without a smile. They were very so random. Oh wow! I totally had forgotten about that story. That's kind of a funny story, but anyway.
All the farmers markets here, all the best food is from Amish country. They come in and they're just like, yeah, like it's strange to be like, okay, all this food from like get it from straight Amish folks and then be like, okay, here's my credit card. Oh, you take Square, excellent. It's like it's strange, but it's cool.
Yeah,
that's definitely cool. But yeah, that's living in Philly for you.
That's funny. So where are you originally from?
I'm from all sorts of places, I guess, because it's like I was born in New York, spent until I was like I don't know until third grade in New York. My parents moved to Florida. Then they got divorced, so I spent half the year in New York and then half the year in Florida until my dad died. Then I just spent the rest of my time in high school in Florida until college. Then I moved to Philly. And then I was in Philly for a while, moved to LA. Then after about 8 years of LA, moved back to Philly. And I've been here for 3. So it's like, I don't know where I'm from.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, wherever you end up, you sort of just get used to it. And I don't think it takes that long to adjust to places anyway. You know? Like, I lived in Ohio my whole life, moved out here in 2001. And I mean, this is home.
Yeah, that's the thing, where that Philly feels like home to me. I was able to like life took on a different and better kind of toll when I came out here. I'm not an LA guy. Like that's not. I'm a Philly guy. And I did really well in LA because I enjoy really good food and I enjoyed the subway and it was fun to like work. I enjoyed networking with other creative people, but that said, nobody in LA seems to really have the resources to create because they were spending all their resources being in LA. Myself and
cost of living.
The cost of living, and the culture, it really doesn't facilitate having the time to work on anything with anybody else.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a very strange. It's oddly competitive. I didn't really like it.
I don't like that.
But LA is, Philly is much more about camaraderie and collaboration. So
yeah,
I found myself much more at home here.
That's cool. Working class, I guess. Working class people.
Yeah, like I don't know anything other than being able to like make music and have time to do that stuff.
Yeah.
When you can get a room for $300-400 a month and like have time and have a basement
Right.
Every house has a basement, and then the kind of the social attitudes about people practicing until 8 or 9 p.m. It's different. You don't have to go get a practice space and all that shit. You know, it's the attitudes are much more about helping each other and pitching in to make everything better, because that's
cool.
yeah, so I mean, it made it really interesting when it came time to work on stuff for this new project, Executioner's Math, because it's like, oh, everybody is down to just kind of lend a hand. And it's easy because I can now go to a studio that's like up the street. My buddy Jeff Ziegler, who's done a ton of stuff. He does the War on Drugs, Kurt Vile. He's done stuff for Nothing. He's done a lot of really great. He did the Swirlies. He's done a ton of stuff. He's up the street.
That's cool.
So he's making our record with us, and my buddy Sam is doing drums again, and they played drums with Crowhurst. So it's like, we all get to kind of go in and have fun and not really have to worry about like what the scene is up to.
Right. I hate that shit anyway.
Yeah, I don't really understand that stuff. I mean, I always kind of seem like, I guess my projects always kind of seem like they're not where they're supposed to be. Like, I was working in a black metal thing, but it was never really black metal. By the time it was black metal, it was noise, and by the time it was noise, it was ambient. And
right.
It's like Executioner's Mask is the primary focus, and it's a post-punk goth band that's on a black metal, death metal label that has members of all these death metal and experimental groups. Our tape's being released on To Live a Lie, which is like Drop Dead and all these grind bands, Cave State, stuff like that. So like, I don't understand that whole thing. I don't know. There are musicians, and I don't know any musician that listens to just one type of music.
No.
I mean, Tosin Abasi is one of the few people, Tosin Abasi from Animals as Leaders, is one of the few people I've ever spoken to who just listens to tech metal, because that's what he plays. But besides that, what's up?
I said that's interesting. I don't know if it does that either.
I mean, the dude's a guitar legend, and he was my neighbor, and I remember coming over and mentioning My Bloody Valentine. He was like, "What's that?" And I was like, the shoegaze band. He's like, "What's shoegaze?" And I was like, "Oh boy, aren't you like the guitar legend?" And he's like, "Yeah, but I don't know everything."
Right.
Like, okay, well, shoegaze, which is, I mean, that's rad to know, to dedicate your life to progressive guitar so much that you kind of just tunnel into it. That's no hate on Tosin or people who do that, but I think the majority of people, if you say to them like, "Hey, I noticed your death metal guitar playing," or for example, Jake from the band Uada, that big black metal band, his record is super heavily influenced by The Cult, and he's doing a solo on the Executioner's Mask record, because what we were doing, it's post-punk, but it kind of was to me it was reminiscent of what he was doing atmospherically with his black metal stuff. So it's like, you can go to somebody and say, "Hey, I know you don't play traditionally this style, but I'm sure you like it. You seem like you like it.
It fits, yeah. It's like, that's what Mike and I were actually talking about this earlier. It's so interesting now because, like back in the 90s and stuff, when we toured and stuff, everything was very goth. I'm doing hand quotes again. I need to quit doing that. Sorry. I'm trying to quit doing this because I hate it. But anyway, the scene was so insular, and like if you were even slightly deviated from what they thought you should be, you were like sort of ostracized or whatever. And now, just like you're saying, it's like everything's so healthy, because to me it's healthy, because like you have metal and shoegaze and dark wave and post punk and all this stuff kind of mixed together to where you can't even tell what genre a band fits into.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I can't see, what we do with like Executioner's Mask existing without a firm root in something that to me is so far away from, traditional goth structures, which is like noise rock and like Butthole Surfer style noise rock and, the kind of death metal and funeral doom stuff that Ryan plays. I mean, that's more goth, but I mean, even still, like death metal, I don't consider traditionally goth music, even though it's similar aesthetically. I
right.
think, but when I hear Ryan's stuff, I know if you slow it down, those big pummeling riffs, it's post punk riffs just played fast, and you're
Right.
putting like an entire post punk record's worth of shit into one fucking song, and then putting an HM2 pedal on it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's dissect this and approach post punk in a more riff oriented way. Instead of throwing reverb on everything, let's take the one element that everybody throws reverb on, take all the reverb off and highlight it and see if we can still achieve the same results.
Yeah.
Those, the new record, you heard the demos to it. What do you think? Because you're the only person who's heard it.
I mean, I think it sounds like music that's been around forever, but and I mean that in a good way. I mean that in a good way, because it's so hard to find good music that has an old vibe that doesn't sound like it's copycatting. You know what I mean? And I think that the different influences are there. You can hear that. You know what I mean? I think that's I think that's the coolest thing ever, when you take stuff that's supposed to not fit together and it fits together.
Thank you. That's my whole thing with this particular record was just like you said, what doesn't fit, I think that one of the biggest things for me was with the first record, Despair Anthems, being as it was, with so many people who I knew who liked heavy music coming in saying I really dig this, I kind of looked at it and said, all right, well, what do my friends who like really heavy music and also post-punk also really like? Like, what's the unifier? And I think it's things like The Weeknd, things that One O Tricks Point Never, James Ferrero, things like that have these kind of weird, futuristic kind of sounds that go beyond that kind of 80s synth wave, but are still rooted in it.
Yeah.
That, to take the idea that you've got 80s synth wave roots, and then you've got the 90s Max Martin style songwriting structure. So, intro, verse, chorus, verse, kind of bridgy hook, return it to the chorus, leave. And then throw an overtone of this kind of more modern, I would say, like, just, acoustic elements like the little trap flares. Those kind of, like I said, those kind of futuristic synth sounds that they sound like new things trying to sound old as opposed to old things.
Right.
So I think the blending of all of that stuff together is what I try to kind of achieve with the end goal of it,
Yeah.
to sound almost like you said, like old music, but if you tried to explain old music to someone who's never heard it before, who's only heard modern music.
Yeah. I think music is really healthy. Like, I think music is really healthy right now. I always see, like, some of my friends from back in the day or whatever, you know, you'll see people saying, God, there's just no good music now. And I'm like, you're not looking, because there is good music. There's too much good music. Like, I can't, you're naming all these bands. I have no idea who you're talking about. There's so much good stuff that I get overwhelmed by it, and I just give up trying to keep up on it, because and plus my memory is awful, so it's, you know, one of those things. But I just hear so much stuff all the time that's so freaking good, and I'm like, you people aren't looking if you don't think there's any good music out there, because it's all just like the stuff you like, except for new, and truthfully, most of it's better.
I think the issue is there's, at least since I was in college, there's been a real drop off in the way that people are able to get new music. I think I was really lucky in that growing up, I came up with kind of the end of MTV and the beginning of MySpace. I got the beginning of MySpace and you know, that middle ground of, you know, handing out CDRs and shit like that. You know, but it did a quick swerve for me into MySpace. And then after that, you know, there was a little lull and you had Bandcamp. But, you know, the Bandcamp isn't a real great way to find new music.
No, it's great for the bands, though.
Yeah, but in the middle ground of that, you had Pitchfork and, you know, the blog era. And that, to me, was, and probably still is, the most potent recent place to find new music. I mean, if you look at the people who were featured on Pitchfork 10 years ago, you know, even a lot of the more obscure people are like directing the Super Bowl halftime show. Musical director for the Super Bowl halftime show was like a weird experimental Pitchfork darling in the 2010s.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, you know, like a lot of these people, you know, Lana Del Rey was a Pitchfork darling. You know, but once that stopped really being a thing that people look to a lot, I mean, they still do, but once it stopped being the tastemaker that it was, there was really nothing in a human capacity that was able to replace it. There was the Spotify algorithm that came close, but that's not anything compared to people, you know, a curated, I'm going to check to see what new albums came out. Oh, this was rated well. You know, I remember my parents saying, I don't know what movies to see. Let's see what the reviews were. And, you know, being a teenager and having people go, let's check Rotten Tomatoes. Like that was going to fucking do anything. But, you know, like Pitchfork was a quantifiable thing to be like, was this record good or was it shit? For the most part, for, you know.
Yeah, and you know, that was what alternative press was back in the day too. Back in the 90s, like you would always flip through the reviews in alternative press to see, because they would review underground stuff. So a lot of times you would find bands that way. And of course all the fanzines back then. But you're right, like you don't really look for reviews anymore. I mean, first of all, we don't look at our reviews anyways. I don't even know where you'd find them. I don't know where.
Well, the goth scene especially is like not very like critically oriented. It's very much about, at least from what I've seen, about like community in what gets played at clubs and what gets played on mixes.
You just hit on something. That right there, I think, all of these Twitch DJs and people doing their streaming shows. I follow a lot of DJs, and every week or sometimes multiple times a week, they'll post their playlists. And I think that is a way that a lot of people are getting new music now, by seeing these playlists and being like, what the hell's that? Looking it up, or watching somebody's Twitch stream and digging what the person's playing and like finding music that way. So maybe that's kind of a new way I hadn't even thought of. I mean, first of all, I don't go looking for new music. I accidentally find new music through a friend or.
I think that's how most people find. Most people, I think, have
it's always been that way.
Friends. One or two really good friends in their life that they trust.
Yeah.
That, when they turn to you and go, "Hey, check out this band. You'll like it." You know that they're not spamming, or it's not their new side project. It's not gonna be shitty. You don't feel like, oh, I have to listen to this. And because of that, you probably like it. Or you probably are willing to give it a shot and be willing to like it. And those two people are the two people in everybody's life that read the reviews. And they're the ones who spread that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's important because, like you said, you're aware of those Twitch playlists. You're not the one who's reading them, but you've got one or two friends who reads those, listen to them again, make sure that they weren't just really stoned, and then goes, you know what? That shit was really good. You need to hear this again.
Yeah.
But that's it shouldn't be that way, and I think that there needs to be some sort of there needs to be, and there eventually will be, some sort of new vehicle of delivery for new music, because we've got HBO Max pumping out like 100 fucking movies every month. Netflix
about Justice League.
Yeah, like all the fucking things that they're pumping out, I can guarantee you they've got some room in there to put some shit that is relevant to us all. Like, if the body could be in the Purge movie, I'm pretty sure that we can have like actual goth music in scenes that are representing goth things again. Right. How long has it been since, like, The Matrix was like fucking 99, and that was the last time I saw a scene in anything that was like, Hollywood, where they had a goth club and they were playing anything that was not stock music. That was not like they Googled, goth club music in the royalty-free set, and it's just, that's what they can have the detectives talk over in the scene or whatever.
Right.
But
or Marilyn Manson in there as the goth music, which
like either that or like a fake version of The Beautiful People, so they can like really let you know. Or it's like, how much would it be to license a Grendel track?
Hey, man,
that'll let you know they're in a goth club.
Lycia comes cheap. You can have our music.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is, like, there's so many bands that you could just fucking Google and be like, goth bands. And then go, oh, cool, here's an active goth band that will, be like, okay, cool, or, post-punk or dark wave or whatever the fuck it may be. Like, music supervisors can't still be that dumb. Not in this day and age. I refuse to believe it. If you're gonna be a music supervisor, how the fuck can you
not know music?
Yeah. It's staggering to me because that's one of the few places that are left in terms of getting music out there. Because how often do you hear music in a whatever and go, oh, I heard that song and it was catchy. you know.
I mean, I've heard songs in ads before that I liked and Google searched it to find out what it was, you know. And I've looked up songs on soundtracks before, wondering what the heck it was.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? I don't know if people still do this, but I used to buy soundtracks. Do people still buy soundtracks? I don't know.
I think there was a real big problem somewhere. I'm sure it was a federal legislative thing that happened somewhere between when Daria was on air and when Daria when home video became a thing.
Hmm.
I remember Daria and Clone High, respectively, were both huge sources of finding new music for me. They would have little clips of music by everyone from Snapcase to Cake, and I would be like, "Oh, what's this?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I write down the lyrics and then go to the computer at school and the library and Google it or Yahoo it because Yahoo was the thing then.
Right.
And
That's funny.
at some point they weren't able. I remember they weren't able to license. They weren't able to issue Daria on home video because it was all this licensed music.
Hmm.
And I think around that time, a lot of places realized that every time if you have licensed music, you then need to pay somebody every single time you issue that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So the soundtrack album as it was kind of stopped being. Now the last one that I'm aware of was the soundtrack that was like a marquee soundtrack, was the soundtrack for the movie Bright, the Will Smith orc movie for Netflix. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't watch that, but yeah, that rings a bell. Yeah.
So the Netflix tried to go out of their way and make a soundtrack for that would be, because I remember they did Stranger Things, which had the score by Survive that was a sleeper hit.
Yeah, they're
Like, oh, maybe we could strike again and have a cool movie soundtrack,
Yeah.
Action Hero style. Well, and just like Last Action Hero, they tried to have these collaborations, like unlikely collaborations. You don't remember Judgment Night and all that shit, where the studios would get people together that would never work and then make a song together. Well, they got like a rapper to make a song with Neil Young. Yeah, a lot of weird shit. But that's the last soundtrack album I can think of, again, outside of, Stranger Things, that's Lakeshore. But, again, like, yeah, that was the last soundtrack movement I remember, was the synthwave thing that was happening in the mid-2010s. And I mean, that's still very much a movement. Like, what was it? Gunship. Gunship is really big, which is like synthwave with. They got the dude, or Peter Bader got the dude from the Lost Boys, the sax guy, to play on a track. I think that was Peter Bader. It might have been Gunship. I'm not quite sure. To me, it's all like.
Oh no, I've never heard of either one of it, so I don't know.
You know, like John Carpenter music.
Yeah.
It's all just fake John Carpenter.
Oh.
It's like that as a genre with kind of like cheesy action movie guitar solos.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's really popular amongst the like sunglass wearing death metal crowd. If you're trying to listen to something that's cool but also kind of ironic. I don't listen to it, but I'm aware of it.
Literally the first time I've ever heard of such a thing. I don't know. I'm old. I don't know.
I'm very fortunate that like my musical knowledge came up around the time of Last FM. So, are you familiar with Last FM?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the Last FM algorithm was how I found it. So it was like, oh, I like, I would see a review for a Lungfish album, and I'd go, oh, I like this album by Lungfish. Let me listen to everything this producer's ever done. Oh, let me listen to all the weird Discord stuff. I didn't know Discord Records had stuff that didn't sound like Minor Threat. Let me listen to all the other weird, fucked up Discord projects that Ian MacKaye threw money at because, ethos. Like it was like the Blogspot era. So I wasn't even just limited to what's on Spotify. It was whatever was on Rapid Share. It was all the same, from fucking, no matter if it was a Lana Del Rey record that came out or a 7-inch that was released in an edition of like 200 in Wichita, Kansas, and only had 10 that actually were circulated. I'd be getting them through the same file share service. So it didn't, my musical knowledge was like, okay, you're all on the same platform. So that's why to me, it's like, you're like, oh, well, I don't know any of the stuff, I'm old. I'm like, it's all the same to me because like I started with the chart, of what is the bedrock of this sound I enjoy. That's how I discovered Lycia. That's how I discovered almost all the music I like. Everything from, I discovered Lycia around the same time I discovered all the cold meat industry stuff. Brighter Death Now. That it wasn't even, it was less attached to goth music and more attached to like the industrial and noise that I was listening to.
Yeah, that's funny.
So it's just all one big thing to me, for me to find it through the kind of CMI sort of cold wave kind of sound, and then have it circle around to post-punk and goth, which it's fundamentally the same but still in application so different.
Yeah.
One feels like music that's very solitary and one is very much communal. So I don't know, like that it prevents me from having music be a compartmentalized thing, and having it be something where I would have, be dissuaded from listening to a certain type of music.
Right. Yeah.
Applying that type of music in a influence. But that said, you guys are having a really massive reissue right now, and I found it awesome that it was happening through Avant-Garde, that a label I know for heavier music.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, it's funny because that just came out today, so we will. Yeah, super set. I mean, first of all, that record legit changed my life. Somebody sent me a copy of it on cassette. I popped it in. I'm like, I have to know this person. I tracked Mike down. The rest is history. There's a whole nother human being that exists because of that album. I mean, so to actually, I mean, we haven't physically seen them yet, but just crazy. And like Roberto had started messaging us like years ago, wanting to put this vinyl out. And Mike's always like, now's not the time, now's not the time, now's not the time. And then literally just a couple weeks ago, he messaged Mike again, and Mike's like, now's the time. And it's like, boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden it's, this was literally only maybe 3 weeks, 3-4 weeks planned. And it's this quick, and, it's doing well, so.
Well, I mean, you guys are legends, and Avant-Garde is a great, great label. I mean,
yeah, he's been so great. Can't say enough nice things about Roberto, and just so good. Everything's been so good with it.
Labels are there are so many labels and there are so few good ones. So
Yeah, we've been fortunate, thankfully. But I know some people really get raked over. Yeah.
all I'm willing to say on record, as we've spoken before about how this is not an edited program, is that the back catalog of the majority of the Crowhurst stuff is owned by Prophecy, and I am focusing on a different project, which I have more ownership of.
Yeah.
I wish there was more. I wish it was less difficult for me to make music with Crowhurst, but fortunately, it is very easy for me to make music with Executioner's Mask, and I love doing it. But that's what I have to say about labels, is that I love the label I'm currently on, the two labels I'm currently on with Executioner's Mask. To Live a Lie is a wonderful, one of the best punk labels around, and Profound Lore has always been exceptionally kind and understanding, and more than understanding with my stupid requests, and I'm my tunnel vision on certain things, and it's just, yeah, very communicative. Lets me, lets me keep half of my music when most, and doesn't, doesn't hold me in debt for things. I like that. I'm not used to that.
Yeah.
So, and they like make it so I can go, hey, we should do A, B, and C, and they go, that sounds reasonable. Let's do A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And I also like a label where I can say to them, hey, what, I trust you. What would you think would be a good decision for this?
Right.
And
Right.
then, they feel like they can say, okay, here's my opinion, and I feel like it's a good opinion. We all win here, whereas I know a lot of musicians who not only won't take an opinion from the label they're on, but find it like somehow ethically wrong to like consider what the label thing, like that's like a weird selling out, or that the label has a hand in it, and it's like, this is all one big collaborative process, and I think if somebody hand me an irresponsible amount of money to fulfill my dream and invest in my shit because they know that together we can make it work. I think at the very least, if I trust them to release my record, I can trust them to be like, hey, what do you think? It's like I can turn to my buddies, but my buddies will have just as useful of an opinion as the person who benefit from this.
Right.
So it's like, all right, and then when they have a great suggestion, they can feel, all right, cool. Now I've participated in this thing that I am clearly, a fan of, and now that I want to, work with it. So everybody comes together there. So I love, I love working for Profound Lore. I think they're a wonderful label, and I can't wait to go on the road and fucking tour. I can't wait to never have to carry around a pedal board ever for this project, because that was the one thing I hated about Crowhurst, which was like, I was always like, do I have a one spot and does it work? And the answer is always no. It's like, no matter what city I'm in, you can find me running around going, do you have a one spot? Oh my god, when is the one spot getting here? So I'll be happy to just be a vocalist again.
Yeah.
Deal with like onboard effects.
That's kind of, that's one of the reasons like we just don't want to play shows, because first of all, we need more people to pull the music off the way we would like to, and it's just not feasible. Dave lives in Michigan, and John Fair is in Colorado. we could get local musicians, but then you have to teach them the songs, and then you have to find time to practice together, and blah, 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 blah. And then after months and months of practice, you show up at the club, and it sounds like shit, and then you're depressed because it sounded like crap, and what you wanted to give the people, you didn't get to give the people. So it always was this huge disappointment. And so then we decided, well, if we ever play another show again, the only way we're doing it is acoustic guitar and 2 microphones. That's it. Like sitting in your house, sitting around, playing some songs, and that's it. We can't give the full Lycia thing. It's just not, it's not feasible economically, time-wise. You know, we all have full-time jobs. We're older. We have a 9-year-old son. It's not possible. But could we go take a weekend trip someplace, pull out the acoustic guitar, play some quiet songs for a handful of people? Yeah, that could happen. So that's kind of like where we're at with that whole thing right now. And like what you were saying about labels, that is such a great thing, because a lot of people don't have control over their music, and they have to bend to what their label wants. So I get why some people are very apprehensive about giving up any control whatsoever. We've been super fortunate though. Like, I won't speak to the earlier project days because it was slightly different than the situation we have now, where we retain rights to everything. We don't sign anything over to anybody anymore. We sign contracts, but it's like we just have a different thing with it. Like no one's gonna own our stuff like your poor Crowhurst stuff. Just because, I mean, we were there at one point, don't get me wrong, but after a certain time, that went away, and it will never happen again. But and you'll get that at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with this project, where it's like, you know, I would say this. I'm happy to give 50% to somebody who is the means
right
to keep it going. Because if I have 100%, it's like me having 100% in a diamond mine. I was like, I don't know how to run a fucking diamond mine.
Right.
50% of the other 50% owned by the guy who lives in Ethiopia and runs the fucking mine. You know, like, hey, what do you need from me? Another investment so you can buy more machines? Like, cool.
Yeah, I mean, what I mean, like, I just mean, like, we retain the rights to our music. Like, nobody owns that.
Oh, yeah. But you guys are legends. I'm still in a, I am in a process where, yeah, I'm at that middle point, where I would say 50%. I still need somebody to push for 50%. So hopefully, like, we can continue to go for as long as you guys have gone. And hopefully we can get to the point where we can say, like you said, hey, you know, we retain 100%. We'll just do all licensing. But in the meantime, totally happy to pay my dues and get that 50%. You know, couldn't be with a nicer person. And, you know, like you said, you guys chose to work with Project because you trust them. And because you could have a deal with them where you could license it, and they understood that you wanted to keep the rights to your music.
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't have that relationship with them, if you didn't feel as comfortable as you do with Avant-Garde, it wouldn't even be a question. You would be like, no.
And like, I don't, and I'm sure, like, you're explaining the exact same thing. Like, we work with labels that are like, you trust them like a friend. You trust them that they're making choices that you would make.
Yeah.
And we don't work with people we don't like. So.
Yeah, so it's like, why would you?
Aesthetically, like, we have the same aesthetics, we have the same, like, work ethic, we have the same, like, mentality. So I don't, you know, there's nothing to question when you work with people that you respect and has the same goal and the same like mindset and all that stuff, you know. Like I don't know. Like we've just been super lucky because after Project we worked with Silber, who was our friend, and you know, so we had a great relationship there. And then, you know, we were with Handmade Birds. That was amazing.
Oh, Handmade Birds is great.
Yeah, Rich is fantastic. Just fantastic.
One of the world's nicest human beings.
Yeah. And then, you know, Avant-Garde has been amazing. And we're going to, you know, we have something coming out with Funeral Party. Completely awesome. Yeah, I know. I'm so excited. It's so fun working with different labels because everybody's different and like they have their own aesthetic and their own like vibe and like the way they promote and the way like Avant-Garde is a completely different scene of people.
Yeah, that's what I love that.
It's fantastic. It's amazing. It's perfect. We love it.
It's
so
like
yeah.
I mean, I know Avant-Garde from black metal, but at the same time, it's the kind of black metal that's so influenced by that sound. It's like, you know, like you were saying, you know, I came up with that. Maybe it was a different kind of rigidity in terms of the goth scene going, no, we don't like A, B, or C. Mm-hmm. You know, for me, it was still like the kids in the skinny puppy shirts still listen to Gwar. You know,
yeah.
It was all still intermingled like that. But,
yeah.
There was still very much, you know, getting the goth metal stepping too much outside of Fear Factory. You know, there what was the crossover? Slayer? Like that was it. Then you know, you start getting stuff like Deicide that wanted to be goth, but it was just still very much death metal. You know, outside of the Trevor Brown covers, it was still very much your meat and potatoes, aggro, Glenn Benton, you know, hitting the punk chords and shit. And that's cool, but it was far enough removed from the goth stuff. And now to see a label like Avant-Garde, or like, in my case, you know, fucking Vanflower, who are so focused on extreme music, to recognize the aesthetic and atmospheric core of a lot of what they're currently putting out, even if it's not as traditionally musically similar.
Yeah,
I think it's fucking cool.
They have a really cool vibe. Profound Lore.
And Profound Lore is, you know, they were the ones who put out that early Softkill stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they put out Worm Ouroboros. I'm sure I'm butchering that name. The Jessica Ways project.
Yeah.
They put out Altar of Plagues, James Kelly's project. Like all the forward-thinking stuff is on that label. So to be a part of that, Photocrime.
And it's so cool because like I think of if I was gonna put together a festival, it would be all these bands, and like it all maybe is different genre wise, but it all comes from the same like mental, emotional kind of like space, you know, whether it's like the heavier type stuff or the really synthy stuff. It all has the same like heart and soul to it, kind of.
You would have loved Roadburn. You would have so loved Roadburn. Are you familiar
with
it?
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure I would have fucking loved that. Yeah.
That was such a blast. When I played, it was like Photocrime, Daughters, Lingua Ignota, Earth played a couple of sets. Young Widows. It was just like you said, that blend of like the extreme metal, the kind of goth stuff, the punky stuff, and you know, it was just the most beautiful blend of people coming together to recognize that it was all the same community.
Yeah, I love.
Yeah, we're all the same weirdos coming under the same roof to hear the same shit.
And to me, it all like it makes sense together. Like some people, invariably, and I'm sure you get this question too, what kind of music do you like? Fuck, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know how to begin telling you what kind of music I like. I just hear it.
If it needs a fog machine, I probably like it.
Yeah, probably.
That was what I was thinking of with the Road Burn, where you were like, everything all together, and I'm like, yep, and you can save a whole lot on fog juice if you buy it in bulk.
Yeah. Yeah, very low lights and fog machine.
Yeah, that's it. Black metal, post-punk, ambient, doom, speed, doesn't matter. All fog machine music.
That's fun.
Yeah, but if you...
I love it. I think it's the coolest thing. And, getting to do, guest vocals and stuff in, projects that kind of... A lot of our old, sort of early 90s, mid-90s people probably are, scratching their head about. I love doing... vocals on heavier projects and stuff. I think people assume that we sit around listening to Cocteau Twins and whatever, and it's so not the case.
Yeah, it's fun to think about what somebody is listening to whose music you like. I think at least for me, that's a very important part of listening to an album and that I like and dissecting it is going, I wonder what they were thinking about when they were writing this song. I wonder what music they were listening to going into the studio. I know that people fucking think of that shit about sports people. I know people are wondering what LeBron's listening to.
Right.
I shows how much I know about basketball that I'm like, LeBron! I just know that he at one point played basketball within the past 20 years. But I know that, the other one I was going to have was the fucking swimmer guy that smoked a lot.
Yeah, Phelps, Michael Phelps.
Yeah, I know Michael Phelps. Everybody was wondering what he was getting pumped up to.
Yeah.
I think about that when I hear a Muse song on the radio. I wonder what music they were listening to, because they don't listen to shitty radio rock.
No.
They're probably in listening to Prince deep cuts, going in and going all right, cool. How do I make a Prince song?
ELO.
But
Picture them being ELO fans.
Yeah, I bet you they love that shit. They love Prince. They love Tom Petty. They love fucking all the old disco stuff. And I bet they go in and go, okay, how do we do this in a way that we can still sell 20 million records? That's cool as fuck to me, because I know I'll never sell 20 million records. So there's got to be but I know I go in going, I definitely love some ELO. I definitely love some Steve Winwood. I love some Prince. I love, I'm listening to the same shit. I definitely won't turn out the same fucking, I won't make a Muse record, but I think finding out how the sausage is made is quite interesting. How do you get from all those people who definitely sold 20 million records?
Yeah.
This music that sells 20 million records, but they sound nothing the same, but they're like traces of it. It's like standing outside an Olive Garden smelling fucking garlic bread. And you're like, I don't really want this, but this is a familiar scent that's triggering them. I want to know how to do that. That's alchemy. Because that, I am fortunate enough, like you said, there's so much good talent out there that people
really
don't know about. I don't consider myself very musically talented, but I know that as an arranger, I have a strength in finding people that I admire and and having the balls to ask them to do shit that most people would probably feel too embarrassed to do. Like, hey, great black metal guitarist, play a hardcore song for a whole album for me. Most people would go, gee, that's a silly thing to ask this person who's a notable black metal guitarist. And I go, fuck you, I'll do whatever I want. But that's how you enter that realm for me. And I think that if you don't do that, if you don't have, like if I didn't have the ability to go to somebody and say, hey, you're somebody I admire. Will you do this thing that probably isn't something you're traditionally into doing? I don't know what I do, but I know that those people usually tell me that they've said yes because, like you said,
It's different.
yeah, you're not sitting at home listening to the Cocteau Twins,
Right.
and I know that Jake from Uada, he's listening to the Cult, and my dude from Suffering Hour, Josh, he's not listening exclusively to black metal.
Yeah.
I know that being able to have that connection with people, I think that's the best thing that you could possibly have, especially in this era of internet collaboration, and post-production. Like I know that you definitely are not, like, didn't come up in the era where it's like, all right, hey, Joe in the Netherlands, could you play drums? Sure, no problem. Let me get behind my kit at home and this $58 home drum mic kit, and I'll record 6 takes of it for you and send you over the multi-tracks in about 4 hours. It's like, cool, I'll send them to the producer now. That's not good. I can't imagine that was a thing in '92. You know?
No, well, and that was really never relevant to Mike because he was always recorded his own stuff, and it was primarily just him. So
Yeah.
and then Dave had his own studio, so they recorded in Dave's studio. And of course, now it's like everything's on computer, so we're exchanging files and like I'm doing vocals for Ison. I'm super, and that just happened out of nowhere, like 2 days ago.
Ison, the black metal Ison?
Yeah.
Whoa! Holy shit, dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's so funny because I shared the link to their new record, and this girl commented and she's like, "Oh, I love Heike's voice," and I'm like, "Oh, they got a new singer." And then later that day, I was talking to Daniel, and like, just through the course of conversation, he's like, "Hey, would you want to do some vocals?" I'm like, "Sure." And then now today they put out like a teaser trailer or whatever, and my name's in there. And that girl that I had talked to, she goes, "So you're the new singer?" I mean, first of all, I'm only singing on one song, but I was like, "Yes," but I didn't know it at the time I told you that they got a new singer.
Wow.
But there's a whole bunch of people on this song. Yeah, I'm super excited. The song is so unbelievably beautiful, so I'm like kind of intimidated, because I'm always like, I got to give this person the best thing that I can come up with, and so it's always really, and I do this with Mike too, I'm always intimidated, like, this means so much, and so it's got to be good, you know what I mean? Like,
that's what makes, at least in my experience working with you, that's what made it so fun. It was because you could tell that you took it seriously. You certainly don't phone it in.
I definitely take, like, it's slightly torturous.
It's certainly appreciated both as collaborator and listener. So I'm excited to hear that Ison track.
I'm excited too because, I mean, like I said, this track is just, it's so good. It's so good. I'm like, oh, I hope I can live up to his expectation.
I think we're entering a different era in music consumption, where, especially now in the post kind of COVID era, we're gonna have a different, undoubtedly, a different kind of element of what live is, at least for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I think there is no experience without adaptation.
Yeah.
So the way that the next few years will definitely set the tone for the next few years after that, but nothing will be like the past few years. No, so
Wild.
it's interesting to be on the forefront of that and be in a position where, you know, where you and I are both in projects that are releasing music currently. I'm about to go, or at least, you know, I have plans to go on tour. We're on a really wonderful booking agency called Doomstar Booking, and they have, you know, all these wonderful groups on them like Earth and shit. You know, like you know, bands that I fucking admire, and I've always wanted to work with Doomstar. They contacted us, and
That's awesome.
yeah, I was in shock that day. That was a day that I ordered a lot of delivery sushi, and I broke into the Good Whiskey that day.
Right on.
I tried not to show my hand too much, but
You didn't squeal like a little girl.
yeah, like between you, me, and the podcast viewers, I was stoked. So you know, I know that when they book a tour, it's good. You know, you don't need to worry about showing up and being the only one there. So
and not getting paid.
And that's nice when it's like, I'm going to a country I've never been in. I'm not gonna show up in Finland and like be the only one at the bar. So you know,
that's my regret, is that we never made it to Europe. But it's not too late, right?
Never too late. Like you said, you know, you guys have not only do you guys have the releases coming up with, you know, the reissue, and you're on the ISON record, but I think that
Exciting.
well, and the configuration you spoke of,
Like,
like
it would be easy.
in tune to today and what's possible. That kind of stripped down acoustic Lycia. At least
it would be easy.
You know, I'm very much in the element of this is I didn't even want to do a live stream with Executioner's Mask. I mean, I did initially when I thought we could all go out into the desert and ride horses, because I thought we could do the whole thing, like come in on horseback, because everybody in the band's like half the band's from Texas, so I figured, oh, we'll go and get
that's funny,
and ride in on horses and then play these songs with like 50 feet apart and shoot it with like drones. And then I realized that was dumb, so we didn't do that. like you know, it was like one of those things you get really stoned and you think about, and then you know, a couple days later you're like, what the fuck was I? You know, coming on horseback, got a couple drones. Like I discussed it with them, and they were like, no, stupid, you can't do that. Like, what do you think we are? This is COVID. You know?
Funny.
Yeah, so we didn't end up doing that, but eventually we'll be able to play live music again.
Yeah.
And that'll be fun because I don't know, I can't imagine live music not being the thing where you run out and then there's people in front of you. And I can't imagine a club be like, when I close my eyes and I picture a club, I think of like the Lash in Los Angeles or Spectables in you know, West Palm Beach, where it's just like uncomfortable and I slightly don't even want to be there. Like it's like, you know, I know I'm gonna be spending too much on a drink, and I know I'm gonna enjoy it like a drink that has twice as much liquor as it does, because I'm spending money on it like there's twice as much liquor as should be.
Yeah.
But you know, like that of the clear plastic Solo cups. You're like, I swear, they only make these in 6 ounces when I'm here.
Yeah.
12 ounces everywhere else. Those, I like. I don't know. I miss it, but I can't. It's more that I can't picture anything that's not that.
Yeah.
You know, so the return, I can't picture what it'll be. A bunch of socially distant people. Like, you know, it's funny, like you see all those pictures Toby posts of like the Soft Kill shows, and it's like it's just fog people, and it's like, how do you do? What are they all gonna fucking wear masks? Like, we all pray. I like cracked a rib at like my 4th or 5th GWAR show. How the fuck are you gonna do a GWAR show where you're socially distanced?
I don't know.
You know, that's just, I don't know.
I think we'll get back to that at some point, but I mean, that sounds so awful to me. I was just talking about this with my friend the other day, and like the thought of being in a club just every show I've been to, with the exception of when I saw Softkill last time, because it was outside at a burrito festival, so it was like that's hilarious. But no, it was really nice because it was outdoors and people were just kind of wandering around, and it wasn't like crowded and all this stuff. But being in a club to me is just like, it's not fun. And like, no matter how much I like the band, 3 songs in, I'm like, fucking hurry up. I just want to go home. Because, I mean, it's always uncomfortable. It's always like hot and people are loud and just like, it's just not my scene. So I would rather like, I don't know. I don't know how I would do it if I could do it. But, I don't know. If I could play a show where people just come over to my house and hang out and like leave after we're done, or they can hang out for a while. They don't have to just immediately leave. But like just in the house, sitting on the couch, everybody's chilling. Afterwards, we eat some pizza and watch Dark Shadows and drink some whatever, and then go. Like that to me would be the perfect show. Because you're in your own comfortable environment and it's not overly crowded. It's not like, you know, screaming and hollering to hear each other talk. And then I'm hoarse by the time I go on stage because I've been talking nonstop for 6 hours. And yeah, I don't know. And as much as I love music, every time I go see a show, I'm like 3 songs in and I'm like, my back hurts. These people over here are annoying the shit out of me. I'm dying of thirst.
We need more seated shows. That's the thing.
Yes.
I think that I would enjoy shows more if there were seats.
Yeah, like recline.
I saw Swan and there were seats, and
nice.
I enjoyed that show significantly more.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw Steve Roach a few months back. God, it's been a year now. Holy shit. And he was playing at this college, and it was awesome because it was like being in a movie theater. The chairs were comfortable, the sound was amazing, and it was perfect. So maybe they could repurpose some of these movie theaters, with the because they have stages usually down in front. We could all sit in these nice lounge chairs that all the movie theaters seem to have now and watch the band and. I don't know.
I mean,
that's sort of socially distanced.
I am 100% about that. I mean, the best shows I have ever seen, if I'm just thinking about it, were I saw Flying Lotus do a live score to Harry Smith's Light and Magic at a movie theater. I saw Dylan Carlson do a score to Werner Herzog's Fata Morgana at a movie theater. I saw the Album Leaf do a seated show at a church.
Nice.
Son do a seated show at a church.
I saw Death in June at a church. That was fantastic.
Did you see it at church?
Death in June.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
that sounds like a great show.
1997. Yeah, that was fun.
I think neo-folk is one of those things that sadly, it has to exist in the past, but God, it's such a bummer that it does. Because every time I seem to bring up that I like neo-folk, I get kicked off the social medias by an angry mob of people. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Because of the whole...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, and it's not even just one particular project. I
Hmm.
think it's that the roots of it are based so deeply in
That
shit people
sucks.
consider problematic. I know. I'm very, very much like I'm Jewish. And
Right.
if anybody's gonna be able to say like, hey, this is problematic, it would be me, the guy
Yeah.
raised in a very traditionally Jewish family. It's not. It's that's like saying if you watch Law and Order that you're glorifying murderers. It's
Right.
like everybody, the guy who fucking plays Kane Hodder is glorifying slashers. Guys who are going around stabbing people. And like it's not how that works. Johnny Depp is glorifying people who murdered John Lennon by playing Mark David. It's like you can write songs about shit without having to ascribe to a million ideologies. I don't know. I know people who've written songs about Mayan end of the world shit, and they don't fucking worship a sun god.
We have an album called Fifth Son.
Yeah, like I don't know. Even then, I feel like if I post anything that says sun or blood or anything like that, I'm afraid that somebody is gonna be like, so because that's
Yeah.
I feel like there's definitely a thing now in goth music where in black metal as well, where I don't want to say it's a censorship thing, but I
Right.
definitely feel like there are a lot of people that seem to claim to care about shit that don't really care about that stuff.
Yeah.
Like it seems more about a behavioral control than it is about ending bigotry
Right.
or
Yeah.
like I doubt anybody who stormed the Capitol trying to like have a white supremacist insurrection was like, and by the way, Brown Book was a fucking classic. Like, no, sorry, that isn't happening. Nobody is like, got to Nancy Pelosi's desk and was like, all right, now's the time to slip the Burzum CD in the CD player and really crank it, like it was probably a lot of dudes who listen to Florida Georgia Line and Five Finger Death Punch. And,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
like I don't see people calling me I don't post that stuff. But I can't imagine if I posted a Big and Rich song, someone would be like, oh yeah, and are you a QAnon person too? They'd probably just think I listen to shitty music.
And they would be right.
Hey, look.
I don't know who.
I will not deny the hooks on Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy. That is some hooky ass shit. I will.
I like a lot of hooky music.
Yeah. I respect it. I don't understand it, but I respect it.
The thing is, music is just so much more personal to people. Like you were saying about Johnny Depp and this and that. Like, you have, like, let's say you have a director that, let's just take Stanley Kubrick, for instance. I mean, probably a bad reference, but he doesn't get, like, he makes music about, or movies about intense subject matter, but it's not like they're pigeonholed. Well, maybe he is. Okay, let's not use him as a reference. Somebody who makes let's just take somebody who makes, like, random, okay. Nobody thinks he sits around at home listening to, like, goth music and dressed all in black and this and that and the other. But yeah, if you're in, like, a band that kind of writes dark music, it's automatically assumed that you're a certain type of person. And sometimes that's true, but you also have other sides of you. It's not like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, it seems like musicians tend to get pigeonholed a lot more so than other forms of art. Like, you could be an artist who paints sort of dark stuff, but they don't, it's like not the same somehow. I don't know.
Well, I think I very rarely see like filmmakers or painters falling into themes. It's the cult
Right.
as a culture, I think, like it's not like the impressionists hang out and shop at an entirely different store than the surrealists.
Right.
May wears different clothes than Werner Herzog. Like they both wear old man button-downs.
Right.
Like I bet you Steven
Right.
Spielberg's wearing a hat in the same
Right.
way George Lucas is wearing a hat.
Right.
But it's like, if you make, country music, chances are your lifestyle is very different than if you make classical music. You might be making, you might be living in Kennesaw, Georgia, and making classical music. It's very possible, but it's probably more likely that the trappings of your environment have influenced the type of culture that you're taking in, artistically. And that's, I think that may be the difference there, but I think, I grew up knowing that Alice Cooper was a regular guy who went to church and played golf.
Right.
I learned pretty quickly that the people who like to live the rock and roll lifestyle that they like personified are the people who are your Marilyn Mansons and your who's the R. Kellys and who's the other like the problematic musicians. You know what I'm saying? Like Tommy Lee. People who have like written autobiographies where they've admitted multiple times to sexual assault, and everyone just goes, "Oh yeah, it was the insert decade here."
Right.
So, like it's the inverse of. I think people want to believe more so than even would be acceptable. Like to be fair. It's not like you and I don't enjoy the culture that comes with the music that we make.
Right.
And the aesthetics of it. But I think people want to go beyond that. And they don't want to just... The difference is, like, people want to believe that it goes beyond aesthetics. Like, they want to believe that it goes beyond, okay, you enjoy decorating your house in a way in darker colors, or you might enjoy horror movies, or you like you said, dark shadows. People want to believe, oh yeah, well, you have a coven and you do black magic or whatever the fuck it may be. Because I think, to some people it makes the music more special or more interesting, or it makes an experience. I can't imagine that Black Sabbath did all that cocaine. I want to believe they were snowblind, but I just don't think the human body can take in as much cocaine as Ozzy Osbourne said he did.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I want to believe. Does it make Volume 3 a better record? Or Volume 4? No! It doesn't make that. You can't make Changes a better song. There's no way. But, for some reason, maybe it's an American thing, maybe it's a rock thing. You see, I'm doing the air quotes.
I know, I was gonna smack you.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the idea that there is a mythos that comes behind this stuff is what it's a part of it. It's a part of.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, you are right. You're 100% right. It's just, it can be frustrating to somebody who, people expect you to be a certain way because they built that in their mind, and then you're not, and then suddenly it's your fault that you're not.
But that's their problem.
Right.
I have always respected people who are like David Lee Roth, who have kind of always just
Been a douche.
well, he's a douche. But, well, I mean, he's a douche in his own kind of special, like
He's himself, yeah.
yeah, like he decided that samurai swords and Playboy bunnies and little people and the Howard Stern 1998 thing was going to be him forever. It was him, and when it was, you know, he was writing the blueprint for it. It was him when it outgrew him and became bigger than him. It was him when the bubble burst, and it's him today, even though that is a, you know, that whole thing is now beyond being cartoonified in Death Clock as the rock and roll clown.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. We showed that to Dirk the other day because something was on. We heard something by Van Halen, and we started doing Dr. Roxo, and Dirk wanted to know what that was, and we're like, "See, isn't it just like that?" And he's like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, but you know what? I respect that because
he's himself.
But he found a way to do it so that he didn't have to lose that part of him that's him. Because he's certainly not he was never so out of it that you were ever like, oh, he's gonna die. Like, right. I remember watching videos, you know, when I was younger, and they were like MTV's 15 years, and it was like MTV going back at the early, it was like an early award show, and they went to David Lee Roth, and he's like, yeah, I was at the backstage party, and the band just lit up as soon as we were in there. They blew that place up. We were blowing everything off, baby. It was great, and just everything was a cocaine reference. And you realize, like, somebody who's done half the amount of cocaine he tended to do could only be that clever. But anybody who did as much cocaine as he's pretending to have done could never act like he's acting. So, you know, it's like, it's as much of a show as his fucking glittery fucking tuxedo. You know, part of it is a tuxedo because you're at an event, but part of it is the glued on fucking sequins. And that's how you get to where you are.
That's off-putting to me, though, because it's phony. I don't like that.
I think if you're not the type of person who likes to put on a glued-on tuxedo, then totally. But I think he was the type of person to say, you know what? I would rather feel as good as I could possibly feel and do as much coke as it takes for me to feel good, and then put it on to where I want to be, then do as much as it takes to get there and be a fucking mess. You know, like, the guy's still doing his job.
I can't relate to that at all. Like, I can't relate to that in any way. So to me, it's just not like, I guess I can't ever picture music being more about putting on that show than just the music and letting the music be the music without having to like and all that. And this applies to Marilyn Manson. It applies to all that crap, because I feel the same way about that. It's like, you shouldn't have to shock people on purpose. And I
don't think it always has to be about shock, though. I think it just has to be about exerting a level of personality. I think that Marilyn Manson wasn't necessarily as much trying to be shocking as he was just an edgelord who was amplifying his personality because he grew up watching Kiss.
Yeah. But that's sort of the same thing to me, though.
But I'm saying that more in the sense that, like, David Lee Roth wasn't trying to be somebody as much as he was just amplifying who he already was. And I think that was also emblematic in, like, Van Halen, where Van Halen was also very much... Van Halen was the ultimate you know, the story of Panama being the best example, where someone said to David Lee Roth, you write songs about girls all the time. Why don't you write a song about cars? And he's like, I've never written a song about a car. That's a good idea. We do only write songs about girls. And then he wrote a song about his car. And, you know, I think like, and it was great, and everybody thought it was a song about a girl. Fucking, but that's I think the whole bit of it, where if you're able to just say like, look, this is who I am, and be comfortable with it, and maybe amplify it to a little bit, I think that's, you know, isn't that what music, being, you know, having a project is all about, I guess, where it's like taking that part of who you are and expressing it in a creative way, whether it be through lyrics, or whether it be through aesthetics, or whether it be through the album cover, or whether it be how you describe the album, you know, the way, like you said, how you wanted to present Lycia's live is a very specific way. And it's like, isn't that a form of communication?
Yes, but it's to me that's a whole different thing though.
I guess that to me is,
putting on an act is not the same thing as performing. Like when I see, let's just use Swans as an example. Michael's not pretending to be something. He's just up there in his music, doing his music. His band is in the moment. They're performing. He's not strutting around on stage like, look at me, I'm Michael, and I'm, you know.
No, I don't think
that's off-putting to me.
I agree. I think that just as Michael is known for being very authentic in his music, he's also known for being very authentic in how he speaks on and off stage.
Right.
I don't think that there's any less authenticity in his passion for what he does as David Lee Roth has for what he does. I think that I may not like David Lee Roth.
Agree to disagree, because to me, this is the definition of a rock star, and I'm going to pretend to do each and every one of these, or I'm going to make myself do each and every one of these because this is what you're supposed to do as a rock star. Or like Marilyn Manson, he like literally stole every aspect of his persona from other people.
Oh, I agree, but I think
that to me that's completely fake.
I would say Marilyn Manson is putting on an act. I'm only saying that David Lee Roth is that person, probably. I think that he is. I don't think that David Lee Roth is like, oh, there's a checklist of shit I need to do. I think David Lee Roth looks in the mirror and says, Dr. Roxo, the rock and roll clown is back, motherfucker. You! Like, I think that, and I don't know, that's a certain breed that can only be the guy from Van Halen. Like, that, you know, I think there's something special. I don't necessarily need to know or ever have to interact with those type of people.
Yeah.
I'm glad that a certain level of eccentric motherfucker exists to stand in a vocal booth or a recording studio or have a laptop to write a screenplay or whatever it may be. Because I think a lot of these, a lot of the people that, you don't have to be like repugnant Marilyn Manson rapist level, but you could probably be like cokehead, annoying David Lee Roth level to like come up with some crazy shit and then have a bunch of like, semi-rational engineers and producers and mixing people tone back the ideas to the point of, being potent but yet palpable.
I don't know.
I think that, I don't know, it may not be the kind of authentic that I relate to, but it's kind of like when I go to an art museum, every piece of art that I find myself gravitated towards, I don't necessarily resonate to it in a personal way, sometimes you just see a piece and you go, that's really fucking interesting.
Mhm.
Like, I very often will listen to music that I've heard a million times and then just out of the blue go, I need to re-listen to that one part of that thing. This is a great example is Genie in a Bottle by Christina Aguilera.
Mhm.
It's just, you think standard pop song. But if you listen to the instrumental of that track, it's the most batshit fucking crazy thing. It's not in 4/4. It's this weird percussive thing, and then there's these weird synth drops. It's strange. If you played it in a club today and people had never heard Genie in a Bottle, people would go, "What the fuck is that?" It's not footstep. It's not footwork. It's not drum and bass. It's certainly not Europop. It's a weird combination of things. But I think there's a level of dissecting stuff and removing stuff from context that if you do that, you can find some really interesting shit.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of weird pop stuff like that where if you kind of cut out the voice and just listen to the electronics of it, it's really like experimental sounding. Like a lot of that Missy Elliott stuff, and I mean, you listen to a lot of her stuff, and like Busta Rhymes, and like people from kind of. I'm dating myself in my references here.
I love Busta Rhymes. I grew up on Busta Rhymes.
It's if you took out the rap and put in sort of some kind of like vocal from like a post-punk or electronic artist or whatever, you could swap one out with the other and it would still work because it's like weird experimental electronics. And like I haven't recorded solo music for a long time, but like when I was finishing up recording, the last stuff I was doing, I was using like rap rhythms and like all this kind of stuff because it was the most interesting stuff that was appealing to me at the time or whatever. But I think it's interesting how so many people will dismiss complete genres of music and without ever actually listening to it, because there is a lot of really interesting stuff going on in other forms of music, and maybe you're fixating on the one aspect of it that you don't like, but if you actually, like you said, listen to the music part of it or whatever, you can find a lot of really interesting stuff.
That's and I mean, it all circles around into like what you guys are doing with the release on Avant-Garde, what we've been doing with Profound, and like what you were saying about like people's expectations of what music and musicians should be. It really is changing.
I think so.
Like especially now with the transparency of the internet, you get to kind of see who people are in a way that I didn't even have it with MySpace. And I certainly don't remember. I remember finding out about. I remember the first time I heard who My Chemical Romance was from AP. So I remember reading stuff like that, reading Decibel. I still read Decibel and find out stuff. So it's like now when you find out about those people, you can just follow them on social media and see what they type, see who they are, connect with them, send them an email. And I think that because of that, the expectations that somebody's gotta be this fantasy.
Right.
It'll always be there, but the expectations I think are less because you could just look.
Right.
You can see that as much as people would want every black metal guy, as much as people would want Mortis to live in a cave, he lives in a house. He has Twitter.
Right.
Like if we didn't have Twitter, we wouldn't know that Mortis has Twitter. But
Right.
because Twitter exists, we know Mortis has Twitter.
Right.
So it's like, you know, the idea that there is a mythos that needs to be protected is like wrestling. I love pro wrestling. I love pro wrestling. At a certain point, everybody, like, I remember when I was growing up, general consensus was wrestling. You know, my dad grew up in an era where people thought wrestling was real, and then Hulk Hogan and Macho Man came around. Everybody kind of realized wrestling was more of a show. But like when my dad was a kid, yeah, wrestling was territories, and people believed that wrestlers, you know, that Dr. Death Steve Williams really hated Abdullah the Butcher. You know, like, and that's okay. It's okay to not believe that, like, the Undertaker sleeps in a coffin. And it's just like, it's okay to know that, like, you're a real person who, like, you know, has a house and a family, and you know, that, like, every hardcore vocalist is not out there fucking, you know, in a gang beating up people who smoke cigarettes because because they're in a straight edge band.
Yeah.
As much as they're like, as much as the attitude of that music may be like that, you know, like, we live in the real world. You know, everybody's got like rent and bills to pay. You know.
See, I guess that's kind of where I fall with like people projecting false images. I just think it's stupid. Like, there's certain people that you've like, everything's a pose. They never show themselves. Like, everything is like, oh, they're ultra cool. Everything's, you know, this. And it's like, it's so phony to me. So I don't relate to it. Like, you can be cool, and you also can sit around the house in your t-shirt and underwear. Like, they can live simultaneously. You don't have to only present this perfect, I'm super cool and I only watch or only read Kafka and drink espresso and like whatever. But I just don't relate to that fake, because nobody does that. Nobody is that person. Nobody always looks good and only like looks at cool stuff and only, you know. No, and it's how boring. But that's what I mean about contrived personas. Like, just cut the shit. Be a real person. I don't relate to that crap.
I think it the difference in the David Lee Roth thing may be that you were old enough to remember when David Lee Roth was cool, and in my lifetime, David Lee Roth has never been cool. So it to me, he's always been a lame dude who just owned being lame. Like,
he was to me too. I always thought he was a douchebag.
But I mean, like, I think that he is a dude who owns being a douchebag 24/7. Like,
now, for sure, yeah, for sure.
Like, I think he's a dude who sits home alone with his samurai sword with nothing to do in a silk robe, being David Lee Roth.
Yeah.
I think he puts it on for nobody but David Lee Roth. And that's why I think, like, I don't think it's cool, but I admire the weirdos of the world for being weird. And I think somebody's got to keep those replica samurai sword people in business. So
my question to him would be, do you really love music, or do you just love all of this? Because if you really love music, you wouldn't need all of that.
I think to him that's music. I think that's part of it.
That's weird to me. I don't relate to that.
But I think it's like the people who aren't just guitarists. They're people who love specific types of guitar, and or like, you know, people who are really big into Gibson, you know, and have like 15 Gibsons. You know, on a surface level, I don't play guitar, so I'm just like, bro, do you love playing guitar, or do you just love these Gibson guitars? And they can explain to me for 45 minutes how each Gibson guitar enhances the way they play and their songwriting in ways that I can't quantify, don't understand, don't really care. But that's who they are. It's so deeply ingrained in how they play.
He's a musician, though. That's not putting on an act that's still music is at the core. That's not pretending to be something, and music is secondary. You know what I'm saying?
I think that as a vocalist, don't you think that David Lee Roth's his attitude is so much a part of it? Like, it's about having the confidence in delivering a line. The type of lines that David Lee Roth delivers, I think you gotta be the type of guy who really feels confident in a silk robe at home with your samurai swords and your cheesy sports car outside, and you just gotta be like, fuck yeah, I have my own brand of tequila, like, and you gotta love that life. And I think that if you didn't believe that, if you didn't have that attitude to your core, you wouldn't be able to deliver the stupid kind of lines he delivers with the kind of intensity he does, to be able to make his songs so great in the way that only he can. Like that, I think if he was a dude who didn't believe it, who didn't have that at his core, who like went at home and watched Grey's Anatomy and was like, no thanks, I don't smoke, those are bad for you. He wouldn't be able to come in the next day and be like, fuck yeah! That would be fake. Like, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want him to come home.
Okay, so maybe, like, remove David Lee Roth from the equation.
Okay.
I have a problem with people who are more about style over substance.
That's totally fair.
And to me, he slightly falls into that category. But my main point is that you should care enough about your music and what it means to you that you don't have to put on an act. That was my point.
I think I guess my only addition to that, because I agree with you, is like my only addition to that is that sometimes, at least for people who don't have a lot of talent like myself.
Come on.
Oh no, but I think that musically, technically, if I was a guitar player or something like that, it would be a very different thing. But I think because my talent is more, like you said, it's vocal delivery. So I feel like vocal delivery is a lot like acting, in the way that you've got lyrics and you've got a tone and you've got to match the tone and the lyrics, and you've got to make it all fit in the right way, and you've got to deliver it, and you've got to believe it, and you have the confidence and the conviction. Right. And I think that part of that is, you've got to, like I said, believe it. And is that an act? Is it not an act? I can't say that Glenn Benton is a serial killer, so I can't imagine that when he sings about death and murder, he's not sort of putting on an act. So I can't then say
telling a story, though. That's not being a fake person.
No, I don't think that it's being a fake person, but then maybe let's go further into the whole black metal kind of thing, where it's like, people with personas who are playing a character for, like, okay, where does the line drawn between it's not okay to be a fake person, but it is okay to call yourself Count Grimlock and go on with face paint and fucking be like, we're having a ritual tonight, and then play tremolo pick for an hour, and then be like, yeah, and then you take off the face paint and you're Greg from IT, like, where is it's okay to be a fake person? Is it okay to only be a fake person if you are saying you're a fake person? Or is the subtle line between, well, clearly I was doing this as a part of this grander thing, or like, does it have to be defined? Where do we draw the line? Yeah,
I don't know where that line is, but I know it when I see it.
That's the thing. Next Mask does not really enjoy playing live.
Right.
I don't think he's going to even come to the studio, the physical studio. He's going to just send in his tracks.
Yeah.
He enjoys that element of it. I know people who were like, yeah, bro, I've toured the US 7 times. Record? I hate the studio. You can sit there for hours and then somebody records and somebody tells me it's not good enough. I just want to tour, bro. Like, I don't think that there's any specific thing that's right or wrong about how you choose to
Totally.
approach it, as long as it's in your core that that's what you love to do. I think my problem sometimes comes with people who are more interested in making it a competition.
Hmm.
I think
I think it's the sincerity of it, is what it is. I
I
think
think
it's. I think that's all. I think that's what it boils down to is the sincerity of it. If you're David Lee Roth and you're sincere about it, good for you.
oh
If you
yeah,
if you're uh,
Marilyn Manson.
yeah, I don't know. It like I said, it's a hard thing to define and like a hard line to draw, but you know it when you see it, kind of a thing. Like everybody know, and I guess it's going back to the '90s with the whole poser thing. I don't know.
No, I get it. You know, when you say you know it when you see it, and the first thing that comes into my head was I was given free tickets to see Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie do that gruesome twosome tour, and I've never seen
Yeah.
anybody who treated it like they were doing their job more than both of those two fellas. Like Rob Zombie seems like
Really?
he's content making albums about his wife forever. Like Rob Zombie loves his wife and he just wants to make albums letting the world know how hot his wife is. And bless the man for doing so. You know, like that's the most romantic shit possible. Like you're a star, you don't need to make albums. You're just like, look, I got a hot wife. What am I gonna do? Sit around and stare at my
Not
hot wife?
albums.
Like I love making music and I love my hot wife. So I'm gonna keep doing it and Geffen's gonna keep paying me for it.
But like he's authentically himself. He's been the same all these years. Like you know what I mean? Like it's authentic. It's not like an act he puts on. Yeah.
Every show opened up with like a video of Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie sitting next to each other, and it was just
It's weird.
yeah, it was like Rob Zombie consistently having to be like, we're having fun on this tour, right? Right, Marilyn? Right, Marilyn? And Marilyn just being like, yeah, totally. Like, you know, going through the motions. That's inauthenticity. Like,
Right. Right.
tell the difference between, like you said, Rob Zombie's always been Rob Zombie. He never tried to make an attempt not to be a douchebag, even when he was in White Zombie and made everybody else ride in a different bus, and nobody liked him. Like, you know, but he's always been that way. Whereas you kind of just get the feeling that the other guy was just doing it because he needed the paycheck. Like, and I think that's the like the small scale version of that seem to be the like people who, you know, maybe they really love what they're doing, but they turn it into a competition and they make it ugly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like we were talking about earlier, how there's not many places for people to find new music. You know, if you like Lycia, or if you like Ash Code or Empathy Test, and you reach out to the, you know, you want to find more music like them, what are you going to do? You look on the recommended on Spotify. That's it. Like, I think that if you then like more of these bands, especially, have been doing like remix albums where they reach out to members of the community and are like, hey, you are a like-minded group, or you're a group I admire. Would you want to do a remix? And you know, like Bestial Mouths asked me to do a Crowhurst one, and I mean, we've played shows together, but we couldn't be further in terms of music, you know. And the remix I gave them was like, it was like 14 minutes. This is like I did the same treatment I did for Controlled Bleeding for Bestial Mouths, and it was like 14 minutes of ambient, and they loved it. But you know, like you said, people don't always listen to one style of music.
Yeah.
That remix album has everybody on it, from like Kennedy from Sursic to members of the fucking what was it, Dead Milkmen and Grendel. which was why it was in my mind earlier. And it's like, the more members of the community are open to kind of having other groups in this community go, as part of their circle. And we all kind of, instead of having everybody in the cafeteria sit at different lunch tables, we all kind of push our tables together.
Right.
It makes it more apparent also who the people are who are like, you can't sit with us.
Right.
Like sooner or later, those people end up sticking out like sore thumbs.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it's a blend of like 70-30, that group of 30 looks kind of cool. But when it's a group of 95-5, those 5 look like douchebags.
Yeah.
So, the key to keeping all of this stuff fresh and the route that we seem to be going in terms of like creativity is the route that we're at today, where like a label like Avant-Garde or Profound Lore are putting out stuff that we're doing. And the metal scene, like Ison and you are working together, which I'm fucking stoked for. Like, I think that's like, I couldn't be more hopeful for a new musical renaissance.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I think about, we don't really have a music industry. We have less of a music industry now than we ever did. I have a chance of winning a Grammy.
That's why I think it's awesome, actually, because people have the power for themselves,
I mean, but there's been more control in the hands of the musicians now than there has been since the 70s, I think.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's very nice, but it's also a weird feeling to think like, we could very easily be in an era where, like Imperium was nominated for a Grammy. You've got, it's very possible that Full of Hell could be nominated for a Grammy for metal performance. You see Pissgrave was on the Billboard charts. Pissgrave! I can't imagine what they were thinking.
Wasn't Softkill on?
Oh yeah, Softkill was like, Softkill is, I love Softkill, but I hesitate to call them an indie group anymore. Like, just because Toby is smart enough to not like sign to a big label and able to do it himself, they're like, where everybody should, if you're trying to be as big as possible, where you should be looking. I've told Toby this. The dude's built an empire, and it's incredible and staggering, and he moves so much merch a year.
No.
Like, yeah, he's got a streetwear style shop. So but you've got
a fashion line.
Yeah.
They more or less have one, but I
mean, but Toby has built a whole empire with Softkill that encompasses aesthetics, not just even in fashion and music. It's like homeware, design. Like, it's like the cult of Softkill. It's the coolest fucking thing. But I think, like, it's one example of this new, like I say, the new musical landscape where, you can have a power electronics group like Kofar working with Portrayal of Guilt, who are charting on Billboard charts. You can have Toby selling out, like having his own shop and basically being a shoegaze band, like having a fucking store. Like, I can't imagine this for hardcore bands when I was in high school.
Yeah. Like, that's what I think is so cool now, is because people are in more control over their careers. They're not as beholden to somebody else holding the purse strings, so to speak. or, I think it's
I mean, everybody, it seems, you start with labels. I don't know anybody who has done it 100% independently without a record label or somebody else investing in them. Like, the thing people ask me all the time is like, how do you get in contact with labels? How do you do these things? And it's like,
send them a message.
yeah, like you certainly don't do nothing.
Right.
Which is, I think, what a lot of people think is like, oh, I just keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully someone comes along and likes it, and then they send it. It's like, no, it's like you said, send them a message and have a plan, and like say, okay, I have A, B, and C. You want D? Would you be willing to get me from C to D? Because here's how we do it. We go to this producer and this engineer, and this is the budget, and and that way, that label, who has to sell albums for price, can go, okay, it costs me this much to make a record. This much is how many I need to make. This is like, but people don't think about that. They just think, okay, well, if I just keep plugging along and doing what I'm doing, and I think that's the number one flaw, is just saying like, hey, I can do it all myself and get to where Toby's at, because Toby released his most successful record independently.
Yeah.
So therefore, he must be doing it the best without any safety net. And it's like, no, Toby worked super duper hard along with other people who had an infrastructure that allowed him to build a level of success with his hard work. But if he'd done all that hard work and he wasn't on a label with infrastructure and shit like that, like if he didn't pay his dues, like you said, in the beginning of project, you didn't have the deal you have currently.
Right.
So I think, as much as it's cool and like, the thing that I think everybody hears is like, oh, we all need to retain our rights. We all need to have control over our music. It's like, I wish I was never fed as much of that as I was when I was younger, because I know a lot of people who have prevented themselves from making the investments in themselves that they need to in order to get to the level where they want to be, because they're too afraid to say like, okay, my first couple of albums, I'm probably not going to own them, because it's like, or I may need to buy them back, or I may have only be able to own half, like, I really wish my first car was a 68 GTO. I still can't afford that car, but I know that like my very first car was like a 99 Maxima with hurricane damage. Very good first car, but I'd probably never drive it again. Just like my first contract with a record label, kind of a 99 Maxima with hurricane damage, and I'd probably never sign that again. But it's your first car.
You live and learn.
Yeah.
I will say that I think people stand a better chance of not getting that as their record deal now than maybe a few years ago, just because theoretically you could release your own music. You just have to put in the work. I mean, you can do all the groundwork yourself if you want to. You can build your own cult following. People do it.
I think it's possible, but I think, from my experience, building that organically at these days is so ingrained with, working with these independent curators like Profound Lore, or in your case, like Project, or I mean, they're not Interscope. It's not Geffen. It's not Epic. I think that the natural progression of things is that those people who tend to work very, very hard ultimately end up in the framework that so-and-so will say, you need to send a message to Chris. You need to send a message to Ricardo. You need to send a message to so-and-so. And someone will tell you, okay, message that person. But I think that, if you say no, I'm going to release it myself, it's fine, you have a chance, but like, it better not be the week that the new so-and-so record comes out and everybody's talking about that, because ultimately, even though there aren't, we don't have Spin magazine that a label can say, put him on the cover of Spin, give him 3 pages in Rolling Stone. You don't have that. You don't have somebody saying, all right, let's get him on the closing soundtrack, the closing credits to whatever action movie. You do have people who are in the middle ground of where you and I are, where they're not the 2 friends who read all the reviews, but they're not also in the place where they're too busy to really follow any of that shit, and they just got somebody, a few people they trust to filter through all the nonsense. Let's say there's some, it's like, for example, I like everything that CMI and Project have released. So when CMI, I don't follow what's going on in the goth scene, but I know that if CMI or Project release something new, I'd know about it. And I think a lot of people are that way about metal, especially since everybody in their brother's got a metal band.
And I think like part of the way people get exposed to new stuff is by following, if they know a label and they like the stuff on that label, if that label puts out a new record, they're probably going to like it. And that's how they, you follow these people on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, and that's how people get exposed to new music now, probably certainly more than reviews. I don't even know where you go to read a review.
Yeah,
but I think that's how people can, like, if you're a music fan and you want to know about music, you can figure out where you need to go to find stuff that you like. If you're the casual person that doesn't really care that much about music and it's just kind of background noise, you're not looking for stuff anyways. You're just going to hear whatever is on the radio, and just like it's always been. You know what I mean? Just like there was people back in the day that read Cream magazine and all these magazines and found bands that way because, like, oh well, if you like Dead Can Dance, you'll like this band.
Yeah, like a 4AD type of situation.
Yeah.
But like even rappers these days, rappers have their own sub labels, and people are like, oh, I like all the people that Gucci Mane works with. I like all the people that the Game works with. Whatever it may be. So I think, when we talk about how the power of this independent, we don't need to work with labels, we can do it all yourself. You can, but that infrastructure that you and I are talking about that allows a casual listener,
right?
That is almost impossible to reach.
It's an uphill battle. I can speak from the writing side of that. I'm not with a publisher. Everything I do is dependent on me. And I'm horrible at promoting myself. So if I was with a publisher, I wouldn't have to worry about that stuff as much. However, I would also be beholden to what they want from me. So if I found a publisher that liked already what I was doing and didn't ask me to drastically change what I'm doing, that would be fine. But I'm not going that route because, first of all, I don't have time for it. But so I can understand how there would be a band that says, we're going to carve out our own thing. We're going to do this. We're going to be our own record label. We're going to do all this ourselves on Bandcamp and whatever other thing. And not, because people do this. There's people that end up being successful.
I think
it's an uphill battle, for sure.
It's an uphill battle, and I think my issue is that it's very often the whole speech about you shouldn't give anything up to a record label, blah blah blah. That prevents people, that gives people the mindset that it's common, and it's something that isn't, not only is not an uphill battle, but it's the right way to do it.
Right.
And I think, that's like saying everybody who's a lawyer should make a lawyer should make $150,000 a year. And if you're a lawyer, you should make $150,000 a year. And it's like, well, what if you're coming out of law school? What if you're a new lawyer? You're 29 years old. You just came out of the 48th best law school in America. Should you be making $150,000 a year because you're a lawyer? Or is there a sliding scale? Do you pay?
Right.
Do you work for $45,000 a year as a public defender for 8 years until you go, hey, instead of being, I graduated from 48th best law school in America, and I'm 29, you can say I've worked 82 cases and I've won 81.
Yeah.
And then you give yourself something to work on. But I think that these days, too many people are taught that it's wrong. It will be detrimental to make any sort of sacrifice in terms of control, or like giving, okay, you need to have somebody else master it. Well, I want to master it. Well, then we won't release it if you don't get a professional to master it for final. Well, that's stupid. If you're going to make me blah, 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 blah. It's like, we'll give you the $500 to get it professionally mastered. That doesn't mean anything, like, you're messing with my art. That's my baby, like.
That's crazy.
But, it's crazy, but it's really, or the alternate of, like, guys would go, yeah, you can do that. And then they'll come back and go, I don't like how that sounds. It's a little too high. Second draft, it's a little too low. And then by the fifth time, it's like, fuck it, man. You're not worth working with. You're too difficult. People who cockblock themselves because they've been conditioned to believe that if you give up a part of the control, or if you give up part of your rights, or whatever it may be, that it's no longer yours. That, like, it's fake, like, or like you said, it lacks a level of authenticity. I just think that it's like, there's levels to this shit.
Of course.
Like if you want to play music with your buddies, that's one thing. If you want to release records, that's another thing. If you want to release records that sell, that's another thing. And if you want to release records that sell and go out on tour and, like, be the type of musician that wants to have dialogue that's open, that goes on YouTube or is like webcast, then you need to be able to be okay with certain things. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to say it's an extension of the art, to talk about the art and to be part of a community. And you need to be able to be giving of a part of yourself that is more than just creative. Now, whether it be that means working with a record label, or whether it means going to the shows and playing them, and like meeting other musicians, like you said, practicing, and deciding whether or not working with a full band is something you want to do or not.
Right.
But that's all individual. I think the problem just comes when somebody's like, I want to be more than a band that has Guitar Center dreams, but I don't want to do more than Guitar Center work. That to me is the where you said, I know it when I see it, that inauthenticity. That's when I described, like, the Marilyn Manson sitting with, needing to be nudged in order to be Marilyn Manson versus Rob Zombie, who's just wife guy Rob Zombie forever. And he'll go on tour and say, "My wife's hot. Look how hot she is. I get to have this hot wife forever." Because I think that's truly who he is. I think, and that's what his music's about now. That's why he is the quintessential standing outside the window guitar guy now. Except the girl in the window is always Sherry Moon Zombie. And we are forever in the audience of that John Cusack movie watching this interaction. Like, but I don't think, like, and that's okay. If that's who he is, that's his music. I think Cisco loves asses, and that's why he wrote the thong song. And I think he could forever go around singing the thong song with 100% conviction. And as long as we can have that level of like authenticity, and we can have people who want to go on tour and want to have the community be the people who are in the community, and the people who want to just have, sit at the top of the mountain and be cool. Those motherfuckers can have the whole mountain, and like, let them sit there alone. Like, as long as we keep doing that, which is where we're going, we'll be all right.
Yeah.
Like, like I'm saying, I can only look forward to the type of future that is like Facebook interactions lead to you guesting on an ISON track. Like what is 20 years from now? It's like fucking every Simon Mall will have a wing dedicated to soft kill sweaters. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping, just as I'm sure that Toby, well, I'm not sure Toby even said it in a fucking Facebook comment. I'm hoping Toby gets that Gap commercial contract, and that he gets that like $25,000 every single time. House MD comes on, goes to commercial, check out the new sweaters, and it's just Toby just playing a really warm riff. Let that be. I hope that.
I ain't too proud of that. I wouldn't be too proud. People always used to talk about people selling out and stuff like that, and I'm like, how is it selling out? It's really not selling out.
There's no such thing as selling out. Like, if you're able to make it from being on Profound Lore to being in a Gap commercial, you haven't sold out. You've subverted culture. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like when I found out like fucking Aphex Twin was hit up by Madonna and told her no. Like, it's just all sorts of weird shit that goes on that you can, like I said, the guy who was in Pitchfork for being a weird fucking vaporwave guy just did the music direction for the Super Bowl. Like, what is selling out? Being able to exert the.
It's a personal. I mean, everybody has their own personal thing. Like, I won't do XYZ, and if you did XYZ after you felt you shouldn't, then you are personally selling out. But as far as like a Gap ad or whatever, if it's not against your personal ethics, then you're not selling out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's hard for me to have any sort of personal ethics in an era where everything is so ethically dubious. Like we're on Facebook and Twitter. I'm no longer on Twitter, but we're on social media groups that are like horrible in like onion layers of levels. Just deeply ingrained horribleness. Like I go out and I drive my shitty gasoline powered car on, in a city that I know uses its tax dollars for God knows what. Like, in a country with a ton of institutionalized racism. Like, if everything was perfect, then I would be much more morally guided. But like, I don't know. like if we were living in a world that was morally guided, I would be able to press 3 copies for every copy that was sold, include the 3 extra free copies, and go give them to your friends. You
Right.
know,
I
give them to
know.
your friends that can't afford the album. You know, like I would make it so that every album included a free can of cat food, so people could like feed stray cats outside their house. It just doesn't work like that. So like, you know, if you want to really make a change in the world and it requires making some sort of like ethical sacrifice, balance it out. Like, I don't want to do a McDonald's ad, but if McDonald's wants to give me $30,000 to do an ad, you bet the SPCA is getting a cut. You bet SPCA is getting a big $25,000 check. And, you know, it'll help out a lot of cats. It'll probably sell a couple of extra records of mine, and maybe it'll get me another commercial because they'll know that, hey, you know, the money will go to a good place. And
French fries for life.
Yeah, you know, like
throw that.
I feel a little guilty with the French fries. I feel like every bite would be a reminder. Like, I helped those cats, but I guess I deserve a break today. But yeah. But on that note, I should probably get some dinner. I am
with the thong song. You found it with Cisco and the thong song. I'm like, that would be a perfect ending spot. Let's go out with the ass.
Play that as the fade out music.
Yeah, except for that, I'd probably get my video taken down for copyright. If I had those capabilities.
This dystopian utopia we live in. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been such a blast.
Yeah, I had fun talking to you. It's nice to talk to you after all these years.
Seriously, dude, and it's so great being able to find out about this ISON thing. Like, I'm really pumped about that.
Aw, good. I am too. I have to say I'm nervous. I get nervous every time I got to do vocals for somebody. So all day today, I'm just like inside going, "Oh man, I hope I can deliver. I hope I can deliver." I'm just
You're gonna crush it. You're gonna absolutely crush it. I'm really stoked to hear it.
Yeah, I am too. I'm excited to hear what happens too.
I know it'll be rad, and I know more importantly than it being rad, I know it's going to be interesting. And you know that especially these days in a genre like black metal, interesting is like fucking rare as hen's teeth and good as gold. So you know, having it be both you and ISON, that's some shit I'm looking forward to. You know?
I am too. I'm so like honored to even get to do it. So very cool.
Yeah. It's like wine and butter. How could you go wrong? Like whatever application. It's like I'm sure it'll be fine. What are the ingredients? Wine and butter are the first two. It'll be good. Yeah, you know, I'm sure whatever it is going to be great.
He'll make it work.
Well, I can't wait to hear it. Thank you so much again, and let's catch up soon.
Yeah, thank you for being my guest, and we'll talk soon. And don't hang up yet. I'm going to stop recording, but don't hang up yet. I got to ask you questions. Okay.